Allegiance. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Rogan?
Here.
Mr. Evans?
Here.
Mr. Gahn?
Here.
Mr. Wexler?
Here.
I'd like to make a motion that Scranton City Council invite the Auditor General of the State of Pennsylvania to conduct an independent audit of the sale of the Scranton Sewer Authority to Pennsylvania American Water.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second on the question.
Yes, on the question. Transparency and openness have been missing from this deal since it began more than a year ago. I believe that a transaction of this magnitude should be audited independently as a matter of transparency. A complete review of this transaction should be performed to ensure that the financial statements and transactions are accurate and lawful. I'm deeply concerned about the expense of over $3 million in legal fees. As was reported in the news media, 50 lawyers and 8 law firms were involved in this transaction. Some lawyers paid over $800 an hour. That's $6,400 a day. If, as the news media did, you compare this to a place like Limerick Township in Montgomery County, who sold its sewer authority to Pennsylvania American Water for nearly $72 million, they only had 2 law firms involved in this deal, with legal fees capped at just over $200,000. The over $3 million the Scranton Sewer Authority paid in legal fees is 15 times more than the $200,000 paid by the Limerick Sewer Authority. When I asked for a description of what the 50 attorneys did for the millions of dollars spent, I was sent invoices with descriptions that were omitted because of attorney-client privilege. I find this completely absurd. The clients here are the ratepayers of the city of Scranton, and they deserve answers. And quite frankly, redacting that information gives the impression that something else is going on. Also concerning to me is the expense of roughly $12 million from the time a deal was reached between the Scranton Sewer Authority and the Pennsylvania American Water Company in the closing on December 31st, 2016. I've asked for a detailed accounting and explanation of what capital improvements were made with these funds. Were these capital improvements necessary? We still have not received an answer from the executive director of the Sewer Authority. So as a matter of transparency and as a matter of openness, I believe that an independent audit by the Auditor General of Pennsylvania needs to occur. The audit will work to understand evidence and determine facts and actual or potential conflicts of accountability, transparency, and integrity. I would urge my colleagues to vote yes on this motion. I think the people of the city of Scranton deserve these answers. Thank you.
Yes, on the question. The sale of sewer authority, when this went through several months ago, we were expecting something that we didn't get all along. My biggest contingency with this has been the $12 million of money that's been missing on quote-unquote mandated work. What was the mandated work? How come we haven't had an itemized list of what the mandated work was? I honestly don't think it was too much to ask on why the taxpayers' money and the ratepayers' money, how it was spent, where it was spent, especially since that money was supposed to come right back to the city. So we've been asking for that information for quite some time now. And I honestly think that an independent auditor is honestly the way to go to get some of these answers for us. This takes our hands out of the deal. It takes the administration's hands out of the deal. It takes the sewer authority's hands out of the deal. And it's going to give us answers which, honestly, I think we deserve.
On the question, I have repeatedly requested in writing and verbally for the information from the SSA that we're still waiting for. The work performed, as both councilmen just mentioned, that was done between the signing of the agreement and the closing of the agreement to the sale to the PACC. There is at least $9 million of unexplained expenses during that time frame beyond what we now know relative to the attorney fees, etc. The most basic explanation has been the bulk of the money was spent on mandated work. We are simply asking for documentation of that mandated work. Clearly, the entities that are requiring these mandates would have had guidelines for reporting as the mandated work was completed, be it EPA or DEP or whoever's asking for the mandated work at the federal level. I'm at a loss for the lack of information and why it has not been forthcoming. So I will support that motion tonight and ask the Auditor General step in and review this transaction.
I would agree with much of what has been said, and the thing I really like about the idea of having the Auditor General come in is it's a neutral party versus having the media who has reported on it at length. Having a neutral third party come in and take a look at everything, I think will be very enlightening to get a full report on. The taxpayers certainly deserve that, so I certainly will vote yes on the motion.
Yes, on the question, last week as we started to get further redacted information and we did not receive any further information on the $12 million, I did contact Solicitor Menor to begin to examine the process of asking for this audit. So I do believe that this is the right thing to do. The questions that have come down to City Council, even if we get the information, I don't believe that we are financial analysts to determine if legal fees were proper or if the $12 million were spent properly. So I do believe that the Auditor General, who is a well-respected person in our state and has done several audits including many in the city. Just one thing about an audit, if we ask for the audit and he does it, we're going to have to be prepared to follow with the findings. There's been a few audits done, one of the school board, one here about our pension plan. There has been some findings and people have been slow to move to deal with those findings. So whatever the Auditor General determines, I believe that should put an end to this. And like I said, we should be prepared to follow whatever recommendations he may have. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved. And Mrs. Reed, I guess we'll have Solicitor Menor work on that request for us, and we should have that out sometime early next week. Dispense with reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A, Tax Assessor's Report for hearing date to be held May 17, 2017.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3B, Single Tax Office City Funds Distributed Comparison Report, 2016-2017, year-to-date April 30, 2017.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed. Do any council members have announcements at this time?
Yes, I have one. Just another announcement about the Armed Services Day Parade to support our veterans, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard. It's going to be held in downtown Scranton, Saturday, May 20th at 11 a.m., beginning at Vine Street and Penn Avenue, continuing to the courthouse. Colt's bus will be running free all day. We're asking all veterans to come out and all citizens of Scranton and the region to come out and support our veterans. Thank you.
I have one as well. On Monday, May 15th, Lodge 2, the Fraternal Order of Police and the Scranton Police Department will be conducting an annual police memorial ceremony in front of the Scranton Police Headquarters located at 100 South Washington Avenue. The ceremony will begin at 12 noon, and it will be honoring all Scranton police officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice, having been killed in the line of duty.
Fourth order, citizens' participation.
Faye Francis.
Was Ned Abrahamson, was he hired by the city of Scranton?
Yes. I'm not sure, he has been hired, yes.
By the city, so when did this come in front of council for a vote? Anything over $19,000 a year has to come in front of city council for a vote. I don't remember that coming in front of city council.
If you're in reference to the legal fees, that was for the sewer authority.
That's what I said. Who was he working for, the city?
He was working for the sewer authority.
Well, how come his bills went to the, how come Ned Abrahamson's bills went to Jason Schreiber when he worked for the city?
Yeah, he was paid out of the proceeds of the sewer transaction.
What's that?
He was paid out of the proceeds of the sewer transaction.
Okay, so so you're saying he worked for the sewer authority?
My understanding was he was special counsel to the mayor, working on the sewer authority transaction, but paid by...
Did he work for the city? Because he was working for Mayor Courtright?
My understanding of special counsel for the mayor, I'm not sure how that you would
Right, so
interpret that.
that means that he would have to come and, he would have to have a vote by city council for approval.
Well, we weren't paying him, though. So,
But the city hired him.
the mayor hired him, you'll have to ask him.
Yes,
you'll have to
that's
ask the mayor.
city.
I'm not defending it, I'm just saying what I know.
Well, is there a contract that the sewer authority had that hired him? Do you know if that's available?
We're trying to find all that information out.
You've met with them in that room in the back and didn't have it, and Mr. Wexler never wants to have any caucuses in the front room here because Jason Schreiber, any of these cronies don't want to be out in the public because they don't want the people to know what's going on. Mr. Wexler's great for that, because you say, oh, they don't want to.
Ms.
Well, you
French,
know what?
that's the people that we invite choose not to be here, and I need to have the meeting, so if they won't attend the meeting, it doesn't matter where I have it. If they won't attend the meeting,
But you know what you are? You're weak and you're a coward. Because if they don't want to have a meeting out here, you tell them, look then we'll have a meeting there, but we want to have everything that you say and a transcript, and then you would come to the meeting the next week and read everything that they said. If they don't want to be here in public, you could read everything that they said. But you haven't done that. And there's never a stenographer there either at those meetings. So nobody knows, just your word of mouth to the reporter, what went on at those meetings. You're known for not wanting to have people come in here front.
that's incorrect.
Well, how many times did people go in the back room instead of out here?
We've had many caucuses here, and all the caucuses have been open to the public.
Mr. Wexler, the back room fits about 5 people. You always have people in that back room. You don't have them out here, I'd say 90% of the time, because you don't want the people to know what's going on. And that's a fact.
Well,
I'm sorry.
You and I can disagree on that. That's not the
Well,
fact.
we may disagree, but the people see what's going on. You're keeping the truth from the people.
Actually, we provided more information to the city
Well,
than
let me
any
ask you.
previous council.
I'm speaking now. When you heard that this stuff was redacted, did you bother to ask Jason Schreiber, what law do you know of that gives you the permission to redact these statements? Did you bother to ask that question?
Yes, he told us the client privilege.
That's not a law. What
Yes.
law? And
It's standard practice in the law, in
we
legal
are the
standing.
clients, Mr. Wexler. The taxpayers are the clients. The sewer authority works for us, to represent us. And we as the taxpayers want to see what bills, why they paid so much money. What did they do for this money? So we are the clients. So don't try to
I'm not,
insult
but
my
we-
intelligence.
This is the information that he's giving us.
I don't care what he's giving you. So you can't say to him, well, the taxpayers are the clients.
We have. That's why we're asking the Auditor General to come in.
There should be a law that says he has a right to do that. There is no law. Just him saying the clients, that's a cop-out. Because we're the clients and we want to know, and that's what you should have said to him. Now, I also want to know, does the Sewer Authority Board or executive directors have any liability? They let this go on and didn't question the bills at all. Is that malfeasance? Do they have any liability for this? Silence.
I don't understand your question.
Does the Sewer Authority Board or executive directors have any liability because they let all these bills being paid, and they knew it was astronomical?
I'm not a lawyer, but if they follow the proper procedure and voted on them during a public and advertised meeting and they voted
So
on it.
basically what they were doing is taking care of their friends, the lawyers, and not the people who they're supposed to be helping, because you know darn well those fees are crazy. And Mr. Gahn, thank you for pointing all that out to the people. You're the only one that wants to. Okay, where were the board members in the sewer authority when all these bills were happening? How come nobody spoke up? I mean, that just goes to prove that these board members are in cahoots with these lawyers and Mayor Courtwright. One more thing that Ned Abrahamson said, the details available upon request without any description of service performed of hours worked. He said the details would be there if you wanted them, and they're not. So, Mr. Wexler, you can keep doing what you're doing. You voted for as many taxes as Pat Rogan to put the taxpayers underwater, and half of them are losing their homes thanks to you and Mr. Rogan. So, I don't know what people are going to do, but if they vote for you again, they're out of their minds.
Joan Hodowanitz?
Joan Hodowanitz, city resident and taxpayer. 57 days to June 30th, the date of the 2016 audit deadline. You know, a lot of people ask me why I'm so frustrated and fixated on audits. And it's a very easy answer, because audits are one of the vehicles by which the public gets insight into how the city and its leadership uses our tax revenue. And it's very important. I will tell you one thing that's disappointed me, this administration and prior ones, is the unforgivable attitude of the city administrations historically not to want to divulge financial information to the general public. And Faye is right, we are the clients, we're the taxpayers, we're the ratepayers. So I'm going to continue to count down to audits and other documents that are due. Which brings me to the next milestone, May 16th. I hope every registered voter in the city votes on May 16th in the primary. If you don't like the candidates who are running, write in the name of someone you would prefer. But there is nothing that will put the fear of God into a politician or a public official more than a near 100% turnout of voters during an election. And I hope people keep that in mind. Oh, but I will say this. I did get the mailings this past week, Pat Rogan and Billy Gone, I guess that the realtors put out. I gotta say, you know, I'm old enough to be your grandmother. And you two probably look young enough on these mailings to have to be carded. But at least we're involved in the process.
Mr. Wexler, could we extend Mrs. Hodawan's time tonight for more than 5 minutes, and she's...
You
can go on, keep going, you can go on as long as you want.
Mr. Perry, Mr. Rogan, and Mr. Gahn, yeah, I am old enough to be your grandmother. You other two, you're old farts just like me. 187, shut up. 187 days to November 7th general election. And I'm still waiting anxiously to see the results of this wonderful Arcata study on stormwater management. And one of the reasons it's on my mind tonight is tonight and tomorrow, we're expecting very heavy rains. And I'm a little bit curious as to whether this Arcata study is going to do some kind of abstract look at pipes and lines, or it's going to look at the flooding and other problems that the city has had historically, the problems that have led to Mr. Young's problem, Mr. Kennedy's problems, all these other people who are suffering every time it rains and Meadowbrook backs up and this thing backs up and that thing backs up. I know that the Arcata study was not intended to be a comprehensive look at flooding problems throughout Scranton, but it seems to me they're intimately tied into the stormwater management issue. So I hope we get a handle on this, and I hope that our citizens are not hurt by tonight and tomorrow's rainfall, which is expected to be very heavy at times. Where is the updated Knowles insurance list for insured properties and equipment? Do we have that, Mr. Perry?
My understanding is that the findings are complete and that they are being reviewed by all the individual department heads now to make sure they are absolutely correct. And that should be ready for us in 2 weeks.
Will that list be made available to the public?
Well, if it's made available to us, it will be made available to the public.
Good, because I've got the original and I want to do the comparison. Next Wednesday is the next pension board meetings. I have a conflict, I will not be there, but I will be present on May 19th when they open the RFP for, ta-da, the third-party administrator. Have we ever found out how the administration nationally advertised this requirement, or did they?
Yeah, I asked that question last week. The correspondence I got back was through the Scranton Times on a post on April 15th. I since then asked if we had done any kind of nationally, through a website, some kind of governmental website, database or employment job site, and I haven't received an answer as of yet. But to their fairness, that question, that email was just sent yesterday.
Well, yes, but the mayor did announce his nationally recognized third-party administrator over 1 year ago. So it should not be a new thing for them. And finally, I hope during motions, well, not during motions, please ask the city to put all the controller reports back up on the city's website and to post the RFP for the third-party administrator and the rest of the RFP for the rental registration. They only got page 1 on. Again, it's a systemic problem of a lack of transparency and disclosure when the administration has promised that this information will be made available to us. And we pay for that website. Thank you.
Thank you.
Isn't that next week? Never mind.
Bill Jackowitz?
Good evening, Scranton City Council, Kathy, stenographer, Lori, and Emil. You know, I have 34 years of government service, which means I worked for the government for 34 years. In my 34 years as a government employee, I never heard of a civilian employee or an appointee not answering the questions or not appearing in front of an elected official when they are requested. So I'm finding it very hard to believe that people cannot come to city council meetings when elected city council members are inviting them and asking them to return. When I was in government service, we jumped through hoops for every political elected official that ever came into contact with us to answer their questions and to give them guided tours and do whatever we had to do. So I'm not buying your answer, Mr. Wixler.
Well,
It may be truthful, but I'm not buying it, okay?
If it's
Simple as
truthful, you have to
that.
buy it. We have no authority to make them come here.
Yes, you do. You're an elected official. You were elected by the people of the city of Scranton to do their business and to do their work for them. So yes, you do. You are an elected official.
You tell me how how am I going to get them here if they won't
You
come?
tell them to come, and if they don't come, you give them a subpoena if you have to.
We did a subpoena and it's out for 6 months.
I'm not gonna argue with you, okay?
But you're making statements that aren't true.
No, they're true because I got 34 years experience in government. How many years do you have?
I have almost 40.
Almost 40 in government?
Yes, government contracting, sir. Yes.
Government contracts as a contractor. I was an employee. Okay. I'm disgruntled with the legal fees in connection with the sewer deal. 50 lawyers. Why do we need 50 lawyers? 4 lawyers could have done the job. Okay, when was the Abrahamson law firm hired as special counsel to the city? That's what he was hired as, a special counsel to the city. So when was he hired at $20,000 per month? And at what meetings did you council approve his contract? Did it ever come before council? Why not?
Because I think he was hired by the sewer authority.
Pardon me?
It goes back to what Faye said, the sewer authority paid him, not us.
Yeah, but he was hired as special counsel to the city of Scranton.
Again, that's
not the sewer authority.
That's a question for the mayor.
Well, then my next question is, I'd like to know for next week when he was hired and who approved it. If it has to be part of the city council minutes, so it should be part of the city council minutes if he was hired as a solicitor for the city of Scranton. Okay, did he have a fee agreement? Was there a fee agreement with the city?
Not that I'm aware of.
Pardon me?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Where is the contract that says he could charge $20,000 a month?
That's what we're trying to find out. We're trying to find all these things
Shouldn't
out.
he have found all this out beforehand, not after the fact?
Well,
The horse is already out of the barn. The bills have already been paid.
the sewer authority board is the one that voted for the deal, not us. I mean, we wouldn't have that information beforehand.
Okay. If not, did the sewer authority hire him?
We're trying to find that out.
You mean, again, this should have been found out before all this was put into effect. You should have known all this before the sale and before everything happened.
The sewer
Not
authority-
after the fact, like I said, the
The
horse.
sewer authority conducted the sale. The
Yeah,
sewer authority.
But who's paying the rates on it? The citizens of Scranton.
These questions should be addressed to the sewer authority. They handled the sale, not the city council.
The sewer authority is an appointed board. I'm going to my elected officials.
You can
You
come
guys
here and
are
ask,
elected
we had
officials.
no
They're an
authority,
appointed
we had
board.
no authority in that sale.
Again, they're an appointed board. They're appointed by the mayor. They're not going to give me the answers. You're an elected official. You were elected by the citizens of Scranton. As a matter of fact, you're running for re-election. So I hope people are paying attention to these answers that I'm getting. Is it true that the lawyers for Buchanan, Ingersoll, and Ramey, Bill Conboy is a nephew to Abrahamson? Is that true?
Yes.
It's a family affair then, in other words.
No, I don't know that for sure, but I believe he is a nephew.
And where was the sewer authority's board? Didn't these board members speak up, or the mayor speak up during this sale? Where were the sewer authority board? Where were they when all this was going on? Everything was kept hush-hush. Everything was kept quiet. Nothing was, nothing was made public. And is it true that the city of Scranton has been distressed for 25 years? Is that a true statement, that the city of Scranton has been distressed for 25 years? Is that a yes? Well, if that's the case, how can they afford to pay a law firm $835 an hour if they're a distressed city? Can someone answer that for me?
We didn't pay him.
Once
The
again,
sewer
it's
authority paid
the
him.
sewer authority paid that money. The sewer authority paid that money, not us. Not us as a body, as a
So
taxpayer.
none of the money is taxpayers' money, it's all sewer authority money.
It's all taxpayers' money, but the sewer authority is the one that spent it, not the city council.
And I didn't say city council did. I'm just saying if we're distressed and it's all taxpayers' money being spent, how can we afford to pay $835 an hour for an attorney? I don't know, most people in this city don't even make $835 a week. And we're paying them an hour. It's all taxpayers' money, remember that. You're an elected official.
I agree.
and it's all-
I agree with
It's
you.
all taxpayers' money
I agree
that's
with you.
being spent. And everything is being hidden and swept under the rug.
Just one comment to one of the questions that Mr. Jack was asked. And I keep saying this, but the only information that's out about this transaction right now, in terms of the legal fees and in terms of the $12 million spent, those answers were generated by questions asked by Scranton City Council. Those answers to those questions were confirmed and followed up with a meeting that Mr. Evans and I had with Mr. Shrive, and that information was brought out to the public. So the answers that we're working with right now have been provided by Attorney Shrive, the Director of the Sewer Authority, for questions that were asked as a combination of questions that were generated from Scranton City Council and also the Scranton Times. So we did ask questions. We are trying to find out the answers. The answers that we got aren't satisfactory to us, but we did ask the questions and we did get answers. They're not satisfactory to any of us. But I did not see Dunmore Council asking questions. I did not see members of the Scranton Sewer Authority Board asking questions. I did not see administration asking questions. The questions that were asked and the answers that were given came as a result of the information requested by Scranton City Council. We're trying to get the best information that we can. Unfortunately, those people do not work for us. Our subpoena power is limited if we even have it. So I take offense or umbrage that you're saying that we're not trying to get the answers, because we are. We took a step tonight to try to get more answers. We are trying our best to get the information that the people want. Les Spindler?
Good evening, Council. Les Spindler, city resident, homeowner, taxpayer. I was happy to see the problem I brought up quite a while ago, the hole in Dorothy Street near the playground, near the softball complex. Work was started on it last week. I don't know if it's finished or not. It was filled in. There's a board that was covering the hole is propped up against a storm drain now. Councilman Perry, do you know if that job is done? Or it doesn't look finished to me.
I know they were working on it, and there was a reconnection of a pipe issue that they had there, but I'll follow up on it and see if it's a completed project or not.
It looks like everything was just thrown in, and like since then the soil has sunk and there is a depression there.
Yeah, and it's possibly that they did do the initial fill, wait for the ground to settle, and then do it again. But I'll get the answer. I'll follow up on it.
All right, thank you. Okay, in the paper yesterday, it talked about a debate of the council members that are running again. And Councilman Gahn, you said you're the only one running who has stood up and fought against Mayor Courtwright's agenda. Well, in my opinion, I think the mayor's done a good job. He didn't raise taxes this year. He got the Supreme Court award for the union settled. So what would you have done differently?
What would I have done differently?
Yeah.
A couple different things.
You're against the sewer sale. What would you have done if we didn't sell the sewer?
Well, I would have looked at the stormwater management, because I think we put the cart before the horse there. We don't have any idea how much that's going to cost. I would have, and that's just not me saying that, that's two PUC law judges that said we don't know how much stormwater management is going to cost. My fear is that it's going to be a significant amount of money. We should have done that study before we sold off the authority who was taking care of those issues.
What would you do to get the money that we got for the sewer authority if we didn't sell
I
it?
would have done the study. I don't know, because I would have done the study first. How do you know if it's a good deal if you don't know how much you're going to have to spend on stormwater management?
I think the mayor's done a good job, and I have to disagree with you. Because I think we're much better off than we were 3 years ago. As I said, 3 years ago, the Supreme Court award hadn't been paid yet. Our taxes were through the ceiling. And I think that we got the new lights in the city, the streets are being paved. I think the city's much better than it was 3 years ago. And in defense of the mayor, he was left a mess by the previous administration, a big mess. Okay, moving on. Something I brought up here many times before, many other councils, is dangerous dog legislation. I brought it up for this council also, and nobody has ever looked into it. Has anybody ever planned on looking into a dangerous dog legislation?
I did try to find some last night, couldn't find it. You have some cities that have the legislation currently?
Absolutely. Pittsburgh has it. All you have to do is Google dangerous dog legislation.
Some of them are out of state, though. That's what I wanted to see something within Pennsylvania. So you say
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh has one? All right.
Pittsburgh has. Just
I am
Google Pittsburgh dangerous dog legislation.
I am interested in that, so I'll look that up.
I did years ago, and they have certain rules. People have to get separate insurance. They have to have fences a certain height. I forget exactly what else, but Pittsburgh has it.
All right.
There's no reason. I've asked for years and years and years, as has Lee Morgan, and nobody has ever done anything. And something's got to be done. That's all I have this week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Bolus?
Evening, Council. Bob Wallace, Scranton. Incidentally, I left my camera crew home today. They're in Norway. You know, I've been listening here, and I've been listening for a long, long time, way before you guys ever came on this council. And, you know, I understood for many years, Mr. Wexler especially, it was nice speech to blame this one or that one. But we put you in charge as council president. They put you in charge. You should have and understood the responsibility of that position. Went to the sewer authority meetings, went to the garage and everything else that was being done, and got the answers for us. We don't have to go get them. That's what we have you people for, especially the council president. That's a responsibility if you read the rules and the understanding of what the duties of the council president are. It was your responsibility, not ours, and I believe you failed us by not getting us the answers. We shouldn't have to ask you, what are the legal fees, and what are the one that you guys should have had that. And the sad part of this is none of this would have ever happened if you didn't introduce the legislation to sell before you had the answers of what were legal fees going to be, what was all the extra stuff that was going to get thrown into that pot. You guys never asked those questions. Now you're trying to blame and point the fingers. You know, there's an old saying, the horse left and all you got in your hand is a shovel, and you know what that's for. Okay, and that's what we're doing here. And it's sad because we're not going to undo what's been done. It's already over with. And we're the ones that are going to suffer and suffer dearly because you guys didn't pay attention. True, they could do what they want. But unless council approved the sale of those properties, they couldn't sell it on their own. They had to come through council. Council never got the answers. It was in front of you. It's blatantly right there it is. And you didn't do it. Don't blame anybody else, you know. And I've heard people pick on Mr. Rogan here, and I've heard him pick on other people. But over the years that I've been here, I've heard Mr. Rogan at least a few times say he screwed up and made a mistake. I think you're better off admitting we screwed up here, made a mistake, we're not going to get the money back. The $850 lawyer, he could have bought the Bar Association here in Lackawanna County, for God's sakes. You're not going to see it. It's over. You already wrote checks out. But the sad thing is, you turned around and gave Basiliga almost $7 million for the mall. Think of that. The irony, you gave him the money to pay for the mall. You never pushed to get a reassessment. What about the taxpayers? You didn't do a damn thing about them. Yet you gave him all that money. Then you sold him the garage for $1, and like nice guys, give him a couple of $1 million to help fix it. Where's the logic? There is none. The guys with the yards that are sunk, water running over, oh, it's going to cost $13 million. Add up all the millions of dollars you gave away here, the parking garages, the meter spaces that you sold. Now you're paying to clean the snow. And ironically, when I was on Lackawanna Avenue today, going down Lackawanna Avenue from the curb out, there's nothing. And then there's a white line separating the main part of the thoroughfare, designating where the parking spaces are. They're called meter parking spaces. They're the ones that they should be paying to plow the snow from, and I brought that up. You haven't done anything about it. Yet you'll write a check out and approve the check to pay for all the snow plowing without going to them. And then you guys allowed them to become nonprofit. Like, what the hell is the thinking here? We need tax money from other people, not the citizens. My church got assessed. I owe $50,000 in taxes on a $35,000 investment I made in this city. Didn't hear anybody stand up and say, what the heck is going on here? When I saved the church and the hall over there for the kids and everything else in this city, nobody stood up and said, geez, what's going on here? Yet you won't do a darn thing, and not one of you have sat up and said, we better push to reassess the mall. It's worth $25, $30 million. Those are taxpayer dollars. So when you say transparency or you say I'm independent thinking, you're not. You're talking about what's happened that's too late to deal with. What you need to do is deal with the present, the situation that you have there. You know, you have to act beyond your own personal agendas. You have to act on behalf of the people of the city. You're asking to be reelected. Mr. Wexler wants to run again. He wants to be out here. He said he worked in government. Mr. Wexler had illegal aliens in a plant he worked in. It's history. Nobody's lying about it. Yet he never took responsibility for it. Said, I had no idea, this and that. And he's never taken responsibility for anything else going here. Mr. Gahan, you got to take responsibility if you're an independent person. There is no one independent here. You five are one. Remember that. You five are one that represent everybody out here. You five represent everything that got screwed up here with the sewer authority and the parking garages. You made them nonprofit.
Thank you, Mr.
You
Gold.
five are one. Keep that in mind. You're not independent. Mr. Wexler isn't on his own. This isn't his council, it isn't his city.
Thank you, Mr.
You
Bowles.
answer to us, and I please always ask you, Mr. White, don't thank me.
I would ask you to follow
I'm
the
not,
time.
I'm not here to give you a compliment in any way, shape, or form. I'm here to tell you what I think about you, what I think about the lack of service you provided.
Thank you, Mr.
And the
Bowles.
arrogance that went beyond
Your time is up,
what
Mr.
you have been
Bowles.
doing. And what you need to reconsider, that you represent the people,
Thank
not
you.
Joe Wexler.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles.
And please don't thank me, because there's nothing I feel great about you, and I should be thanked for.
Once again, thank you, Mr.
And if
Bowles.
telling you the truth is thanking you, then I'll take credit for that.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles. Lee Morgan?
Good evening, Council. Lee Morgan. I'd just like to give my phone number again, 570-604-1212. And, I'm still looking for 3 people to run as independents for these council seats. And I really do think that somebody non-aligned can do a write-in and win, and I really don't think it's much of a stretch. And I did get 1 call so far, so maybe we'll get some more. But, I just would like to poll council and ask 1 question. Is that all right?
No. You can
Okay.
ask it, you can ask a question, but you cannot pull counsel, no. If they choose the answer, they can.
Okay, here's my question. Because I've been watching these debates, and really, they're beyond silly. We're talking about a storm that already passed over and knocked down all the trees, and half the buildings are gone because of a lack of ability of council. So this question has to do with this, something to do with the sewer authority. And my question is I'd like every councilman to answer this question today, so the voters and the people in this city can have a better understanding of what this council might or might not be willing to do. And I would like individual councilmen to petition the PUC to reset the sewer rates in the city of Scranton, because the Scranton City Council made an error when it sold a combined system, and it gave the stormwater collection system money to Pennsylvania American Water. This was a combined system, and the rates were set to not only maintain the residential base, but the stormwater collection system. So I would like individual councilmen to write a letter to the PUC and petition them to hold a hearing and recalculate these rates and redirect the portion that belongs to the stormwater collection system to the remnants of the Scranton Sewer Authority Board to build a stormwater collection system and maintain one in this city, because those rates were combined. And this council made an error, and the mayor made an error. But the PUC can correct that error. And Pennsylvania Water may be very angry, but that's just the way it is. So that's the question I have for individual councilmen. Does anybody want to answer that?
I don't know. I mean, I can't give you an educated answer because I'm not sure what that process is even like. I'd have to...
You have a solicitor. That's a tool. That man right there is a tool, like a hammer or a screwdriver. Maybe if a lot more questions were asked before we got to the shape we're in, maybe we wouldn't be this way now. But sitting up there, smiling, and ignoring people, people have watched these debates, and they said it's the silliest thing you've ever saw, because it's a bunch of illiterates standing there with suits on, sitting there with suits on, that don't have an answer for 1 question. They're fighting over what happened to the sewer authority money. He said it's like watching 3rd graders. And the thing that gets me is the people that are having these debates, don't they understand what's actually happening in this city? And I respect the League of Women Voters, and I respect neighborhood associations. But something, it's time to really see just where this city is, and arrogance isn't going to help us, and ignorance isn't either. And this city's in worse shape than anybody can really imagine, because it's out of assets. All the money that has to go into the pension plan still has to go there. And if a judge has a hearing soon, and he tells this city that it can't collect certain taxes in its future, it's all coming back to the property owners. Sewer authority money is gone, the 511s go out the window, and then what happens? It's a great question, and you'll see the answer, because So many people are just desperate to leave here. When you have people who go out, and you're talking about going to the county and ask them for the little bit of information they have from the reassessment they started. But if people were if a reassessment takes place, what really needs to happen in this city, and if you're a realtor, Mr. Evans, you're a realtor, okay? People are going out getting assessments on their homes and finding out they're worth $30,000 or $35,000, and they're selling for next to nothing. And then the city or the county or the school district say, oh, that house is worth $100,000, but I just bought it last month for $30,000. So just because the government needs money and can create false numbers doesn't create prosperity. It's just one more step on that lonely trail to bankruptcy. And you know something? People are leaving this city and they're abandoning their properties like they have for a long time. And we have 5 members on council who did the silliest things. Mr. Bolus hit on it. The sale of the parking authority, the sale of the sewer authority didn't shore anything up, and it didn't raise any revenue for the city. And another point Mr. Bolus makes, and he's quite correct, is those parking spaces are owned by a corporation, not the city, and they should pay to have them plowed, or bring their own plows in. Good luck, gentlemen, and I hope that everyone in the city understands that 4 council members couldn't answer the question on whether they petition the PUC to divide the rates. That just goes to show who you represent. Thank you.
Samuel Gantz.
Hi, Samuel Gans. So I'm not here to discuss the sewer authority. Give you a quick reprieve.
You want to take a shot at it anyway?
No, not right now. I don't know enough about it. I have a simple question. So I am a third-generation Scrantonian, recently moved back to join a practice as a local physician here, and I got a parking ticket outside my office, and I didn't know the new laws, which are apparently, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you're not allowed to park within 25 feet of any intersection. Is that correct? Do you know?
It goes by the state law. I'm not familiar with the state law, but that's what we follow.
Well, I was told it was a city law. Do you know?
No, the traffic laws are state.
State. And is therefore to change any of those laws, the only way to do it would be to
Through the
petition state legislation?
Yes.
And what about, how do we go about this? Only because for, at least where I live in the hill section, with the alleyways, if it's 25 feet, which is what I'm told, then there's maybe 1 to 2 legal parking spots on each side of the street, which is obviously not enough for those of us who live there.
Yeah, the one thing that the city's done is in congested areas, they've gone to permit parking, where residents have preference, but if you follow the strict rules of the state, parking is limited.
So there is no permit parking where I live. I don't know how I can go about that.
You need a petition from your neighbors?
To get that done?
Yes.
Okay, and then what about the fact that there are many spots that are set up as metered parking or other things within 25 feet? How does that work?
Yeah, I would think if you have to bring that to the attention of the city, if that's an illegal spot, we'll have to take the meter out.
You are correct with that, though. There are many, especially downtown and in the hill section, there are metered parking that is in violation of that.
Yeah, literally across the street.
Yeah.
So some places, if you park there but you pay the meter, you won't get the ticket. Others just kind of.
I mean, I always felt that enforcement should be done on a common sense approach, not necessarily to the letter of the law. So it is a shame that you're getting a ticket for being that close.
Right. Okay, I appreciate it. Just a second thing, if I may, and I don't know that this is the right form either. On the 500 block of Monroe, where my children go to school, it's a one-way street. There are so many people driving down that street the wrong way. There are signs, but I was wondering how I can get something bigger, brighter. I think all the college students don't realize it, and there are a lot of children in the street there, and I didn't know if this is the correct form. If not,
is there a warning sign at the beginning of the block? Or?
There is one. It's there. I didn't know if there's something maybe you could paint in the street or something, because when I go to pick up my kids, I would say on average, every time I go, at least one car is going down the street the wrong way.
There would be more chance of getting a bigger sign than something painted in the street. So we'll contact Chief Graziano.
If you could.
To see if he can put something up there as more of a warning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Council. Dave Dobson, resident. Taxes paid, fees paid. I'm going to reiterate a few things here. The 300 block of Cedar Avenue, take a drive down. I think we got 2 people from Anuka here, right after the gas station. It's ruined even gooder. Once again on trash, it's time to have a per barrel for seniors where they're given a regulation barrel similar to what we would have for cans and bottles, and we could color it yellow or color it red. Red connotates something with medical waste, so I don't know about red, but at any point there should be, if we're going to give a discount, there should be an acceptable amount that these people could get a discount. And whether their daughter's marriage winds up on a rock and they have 4 kids moved in the next week after they get that discount, who knows, you know? And tons of trash out there, so who knows? And okay, we keep hearing about the sewer and so forth. Well, you know, my concern originally with this council was that we're too accepting of Amoroso, and he came from the Chamber of Commerce, and the school paid his first year. Lackawanna College, and you know, his whole sales pitch to the council, I feel sorry for you guys, but it's fall on your swords. If you make it back this time, don't be so quick to fall on your swords and don't be so accepting, because obviously he had a bill of goods that wasn't necessarily the greatest thing in the world, and who knows whether it'll be a benefit or not. I'm going to bring up this medical business again with insurance, and this is more of a national issue. But if your local hospital's going broke because they're not being paid for service, every emergency room has to take in a patient, and all patients are eligible. And years ago, it was $21,660 per year. You were off the hook for care. So keep in mind that that's being figured into your insurance policy, because currently the Congress is having a caviar and champagne party over their Gee, I don't care plan. Gee, I don't care health care plan. And when I bring up stuff like this, the parole of pardons, the bottom line on this is that anybody that was arrested for anything in the past, you're thrown in with murderers, rapists, armed robbers with loaded guns, or whatever, the worst of the worst. No matter how minute the crime was, no matter how silly it was, no matter how many years ago, you have to go a 3-year thing through the parole and pardons. And you might want to mention someday that you think it's ridiculous to your representatives and the law needs to be changed to take into consideration what somebody did or didn't do, and stop throwing them in with arch criminals. I mean, you know, that's okay for somebody that's a murderer or whatever, but it's not any good for petty crime or passing a bad check or something like that. It's just silly to have that on their record 30 years later. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Council. Marie Schumacher.
Last week, Mr. Evans, you said you would get me the amount budgeted for the third-party administrator. How much is that?
I didn't get it, I'm sorry, Maria, I didn't get a chance to get that for you.
Okay. I certainly hope that they use ZipRecruiter for that RFP. And doing a little spring cleaning on some of the old stuff. Whatever happened to the Brunetti's Market traffic issue? Has that been resolved, and if so, how?
The legislation died at the end of the year, so there is no legislation pending about that.
So nothing's happened, everything's the same over there?
Well,
Okay.
Status quo.
Yes, well, which is what I think they wanted was status quo. You know, the
Yeah.
legislation was changing it to something they didn't want.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the status of the price negotiation for the procurement of the Sorrento Reserve Center? And who's doing it?
There's been no activity on that as far as I know.
I'm sorry?
There's no activity on that as far as I know, as of right
Well,
now.
how long ago was it you passed that legislation? Is that maybe in the future when you do stuff like that, you need to put a time limit on it so we get some action? And did I hear right when Joan was up here that we will have the clean list of insured properties within 3 weeks?
That's what I was told, yes. It's being round robin through all of the department heads, make sure all the information is absolutely correct, and we should have an answer within 2 weeks.
On that, did we include all of the vacant properties that are on the cities?
I'll check that. I don't think they were on the original list of vacant
I don't
properties.
either, but, so
Yeah.
I'd like to know how if they're not, how we're
they're-
covered for all those empty lots that
Okay.
we're owning. Now, a couple weeks ago, it was noted that there was going to be a SAPA meeting on the following Tuesday. Who of you went to the SAPA meeting? Anybody else?
Myself, yeah.
Yeah, and representatives from the zoning board, Mr. Penatar went, Mr. King went.
And I think Mr. Bolzoni.
Mr. King is a member, yeah.
Yeah, Mr.
Okay.
Bolzoni also was there.
Okay, and what came out of that? I mean, that is our master plan, and things like that we've been putting off for the.
Yeah, the zoning code. They talked about funding available probably in September if we all go in together, all the groups that are a part of it, and Scranton will get a large share of that funding for a new study for a new zoning code. So September is the date we're looking at right now for that study. We could probably do it ourselves, but I think they prefer doing it as a group because that was the intent in the first place.
And what's the target for having that done?
Well, if the grant is successful in September, I think they mentioned probably the first quarter, I think, right, Joe?
Yeah, 2000.
I'm sorry, you turned
I'm
your
sorry.
head. When?
Yeah, the first quarter of 2018 would be the target date for completion.
And would that include other issues such as the Airbnbs
Yeah,
where we are
absolutely.
now?
Yeah.
Only, are we still only going after one resident of all the Airbnbs?
I don't know what LIPS is doing as far as that's concerned, but that's the whole intent on my perspective, is to get all those issues in the new code that aren't presently addressed.
What about drones and?
All of that.
It's all that. It's medical
Yeah.
marijuana. It's a
And-
lot of different issues that have come up that didn't exist when this code was written.
And if I remember correctly, I was on the planning commission at the time when I helped draft the old code. We had public meetings all the time, so when the new code is done, it should all be done in public.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Now, pension reform, the trust that is being established is one thing, but having the money sit there unproductively is something else. And I would like to know when you're going to invite Senator Blake and the other two House Haggerty and Flynn in here to tell them what it is that we need and what it is we want in pension reform.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
I mean, they can go to the Chamber of Commerce, they can go all kinds of places, but I
mean,
never see them here.
I mean, I've had private conversations with them all the time, because that's one of my favorite issues, but I don't have a problem with that. If they'd be agreeable to come, that would be a nice, that would actually be a good.
Agreeable?
That would actually be a good work session, to be perfectly honest with you. That would be something that would be productive.
Well,
I'm sure
I
they-
think it more than a work session, I mean, because your work sessions you have back in the governor's room and people don't have access. It should be here.
Well, that's one that maybe we could have out here, yeah.
And I think that should be done sooner, like before your August break, certainly, because that is very important to all of us. One more quick one. During the last administration, Mr. Rogan, you said you were going to find out, we taxpayers, I think at the federal level, invested over $1 million on a slate roof for that Jersey Central Railroad Station, and something was supposed to have been done with it, and the excuse was the bridge wasn't finished, and the bridge got finished, and you were going to follow up and let us know, and I'm still waiting.
I was actually in that building last week with the owner, and basically what I was told was pretty much the same thing. Now the owner owns it, and he's hoping to develop it, but it's a private entity. The city doesn't have, we can't go in and say you have to develop it.
Learn, yes, you can. Learn from your mistakes. When we put over $1 million slate roof on a building, there should be a deadline for which that we get a return on that, meaning a business in there and some revenue out of it. So learn from your mistakes, please. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Fifth order, 5A, motions.
Mr. Perry?
Yes, I just have a couple quick things, but I'll touch on the Salem Sewer Authority. That was a hot topic tonight, and it continues to be and has been. I know all of us, we get questioned every day, not just every week, on the sale, with a lot of intricate questions about the nature of the deal and how it was brokered. Again, I know Councilman Wexler has said this numerous times. This deal was between the Sewer Authority and American Water Company. We did not have any information on this until the deal was finished. There was absolutely, we knew nothing of any of the particulars. When the deal came out, we asked for particulars like we were right to have. We weren't happy with the particulars we got. We went back in, we asked for more. We got more when they were redacted, and now this is where we're at. We're just as frustrated as everybody is. With that said, I'm happy to move forward with an independent audit. I think it's actually needed, and it's what hopefully we can put this issue to rest and get the information that we want to be put on light. I really do believe that. A couple follow-ups from last week. About 2 weeks ago, I put in a request for a speeding device. If you remember, there is a stretch in Southside into Minooka that goes from Cherry Street to Davis Street, which is just a continuous road that has no stop signs, no red lights, nothing. And it is just, it's ripe for speeding. It's been brought up by this council many times. And this is the response I got back from Chief Graziano. As per your request on Bernie Avenue, we recently installed a speed timing device at the 2500 block of Pittston Avenue, which is in the same stretch but just on a parallel street. And after we collect the data there for at least 30 days, we can move it to Bernie Avenue location. In the meantime, I have directed increased enforcement there. So basically what's going to take place by the Scranton Police Department is after they collect 30-day, and it's probably been almost 3 weeks now where that speeding device has been on Pittston Avenue. They're going to move that same speeding device, which is just like a radar detector with a posted speed as cars drive by, and it tracks the actual speed so they can see if there's actually a speeding problem in that area. They'll move that to Bernie Avenue. Until the meantime, they're going to put a bigger police presence in that strip of area just to see if they can slow down traffic. Because growing up in that area, there's accidents all the time. There's parking on both sides of the street, and there's plenty of children up and down that 2-mile stretch. So I was happy to see an increased presence going there before we get our speeding device put in. Joan and I touched on this before about the third-party administrator. There are 3 current bids put in on the third-party administrator. The bidding process will, as we know, is going to be closed on May 19th. I have, since I received this, put in a follow-up to this correspondence if we used any kind of online websites, national governmental job posting, bulletin boards, something of that, Indeed, for example, and I haven't got response back. And if we weren't to use those, I would like to know the reason why, and I put that in my correspondence back as well, just to make sure that we're getting the best of the best, because I think we've waited long enough for this position, so I don't want to have to go 18 months, 16 months, and not have the best of the best to choose from. Over the week, I took a visit and I met with Mr. Cerebro over in West Side, just do some follow-up. I know he's been having some issues. His latest issue he was having is with curb in front of his house not being put back after the water main break. I went to visit him on Monday. By the time I got there, it was already fixed. So he was very happy for that to be replaced by DPW. He took me on his whole tour of his area. We went on both ends of that long 300-yard pipe that has to be cleared out, and we spent some quality time together, and there was a neighbor with him as well. They're very happy with the work DPW has put into them, but just by seeing that area, and it's just a very, very low-lying area. Anybody who's ever been out to that area are familiar with that portion of West Side. It comes right off the mountain, and Mr. Cerebro just kind of lives right at that, like, sunken-in corner. And that drainage pipe is just, that's the last-ditch effort to move water. That's after, you know, the damage has been done just to move the water. The real issue is how are we going to get that water from Kaiser, from West Mountain, into the creek and get it just away from the homes there. There's many homes that are affected, and that's going to be an issue that's going to take a lot of governmental heads put together. I think Mr. Rogan was here a couple months ago. We put together a work session with, I think, PennDOT, Mr. Pocius, DPW. That might be something that we're going to want to follow up on again to get movement on this, because this is going to be a major project, and everybody is aware of it. But this is going to be something that just needs to be followed up on. I'll also take a trip up to Dorothy Street, and I'll check in with Director Gallagher to see if that project's finished. But in the recent correspondence I've had with Director Gallagher, I perceived that project to be almost 100% complete. The disconnected pipe running into that basin was reconnected, and it was filled in. And based on what Les was saying, Mr. Spindler, I'm guessing that they're just waiting for that to sink down, and then they're going to probably re-topsoil it. But I'll go on scene, check that out, and I'll get back with Director Gallagher. Also, Mrs. Reed, if we could do a letter to Mr. Pocius about that gentleman's comment about the 500 block of Monroe Avenue, if you already didn't make a note of it, about that one-way. Maybe there is a better way that we can make that beginning of that one-way more noticeable. I know in many parts of the city we have two ways that run into one-way, and if you're not really familiar with the area, it does become a safety hazard. So we need to make that very prominent. And finally, last week I requested to have a meeting with Mayor Courtwright about the street signs that was brought up by a speaker last week. He was unable to meet with me last week, but he did drop me a phone call. His intentions is to draft an RFP, which is going to be, he feels it's a job that's going to, too big for DPW to take care of. Too many street signs, it's just going to take too many manpower. So he wants to perform a study on it to see what the cost is going to be and how we're going to get this fixed. And as I get more information, I'll gladly pass it on with you. But just I wanted to keep everybody in the loop. The meeting never took place, but he was able to drop me a phone call and let me know that was his intentions. And I believe I have covered everything as of tonight, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Mr. Rogan?
Yes, I'll pick up where Mr. Perry left off on the street signs. We did, as it was mentioned last week, we did send a correspondence to OECD to see if street signs were an eligible project for our CDBG allotment, and they are. So CDBG funds can be used for street signs. Now, the catch is they could only be used in low to moderate income neighborhoods. So it's the same areas where the city street paving through OECD can be done, the street signs can be done, and I think the way it would make the most sense is to, as streets are being paved, when there's problems with street signs, to do it all at once, because the work is already going to be done in the area. So if we're going to be putting money into a newly paved street, people should be able to know what street they're actually on. So I am encouraged that we can use some OECD funds for street signs in our neighborhoods. So this is something I definitely think the city through the DPW should apply for next year, and then council ultimately has the say in the allocation of those funds. So I think that's something that we would certainly support. Next, I mentioned, and this is a legislative, but I'll just mention it now, the bid I mentioned last week about the bidding for the streetlight repairs, and I do want to thank our city clerk for pulling these previous bids for me. And it does seem that the bids are consistent with previous years. This year's is actually a little bit cheaper. They fluctuate between the man hours and the truck, the hour. So the overall cost seems very reasonable, but the actual spend is what I want to watch, because such an investment was put in to put all new streetlights in the city of Scranton. There should not be a large cost of maintenance. They're under warranty. So there really should be almost very little utilization of this contract. So there should be a significant savings over what we had in the previous years, when I know all of us up here were getting calls every day about problems with streetlights being out. So definitely will support that. So we do have somebody in place to fix issues as they arise, but they should be extremely limited once the project is fully completed. I did get, I don't want to say a complaint, but questions from some people who live in areas that the streetlights still haven't been converted over, and I do want to let them know that the project is still ongoing, and there are issues in different places that are being sorted out. All the requests that I've received so far have been dealt with in a timely manner, so definitely want to thank the contractors for that. And just to reiterate what I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting regarding the sewer authority sale, having the Auditor General's office come in and do an independent investigation sounds to me like the perfect way to get the information out to the public and to finally put this issue to rest. It shouldn't have taken doing that. It should have just been put out. But I do agree having them come in and do an investigation, and it's somebody that's well respected. It's not somebody off the street coming in and doing it, and it really, I don't want to say it's at no cost to the taxpayers, because it is a taxpayer-funded position, but it is something I support, and I do look forward to hopefully seeing those findings as soon as possible. And that is all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogan. Mr. Evans?
Thank you. I have an update on several requests for information I made last week at our city council meeting. I requested from License and Inspections that they begin a review of the 40 different fees that are charged in their office. The goal is to find ways to reduce, consolidate, or eliminate those fees where appropriate, with a special focus on the 17 fees that are generating less than $10,000 per year each. In fact, those 17 fees generate, in 2017, the estimate for the budget, $71,400, or approximately 3% of the total budget for the department, which is $2,356,000. The other 23 fees will generate almost $2.28 million. So the question clearly is $71,400 really worth the continuing ill will created in the business community, and doesn't this simply reinforce the perception, or maybe the reality, that Scranton continues to be not business friendly? We need to do a much better job in that regard. I discussed this with Director Hinton this week, and he agreed to do a comprehensive review of all of the fees presently being charged in license and inspection. I look forward to working with him to change this dialogue to something more relevant than just 40 more fees directed at our business community. Also, I discussed with Director Hinton the proliferation of graffiti in the city. We agreed to meet further to discuss how we can attack this problem from several fronts, so I'll keep everybody informed as we move forward with that, but this is something that we really need to attack again, because it has gotten out of hand. And finally, my request to the county for the data accumulated through the finished field work for all of the City of Scranton properties from the abandoned 2009 reassessment. It is my understanding from the article in the Scranton Times that my request was received, and that I would be getting a written response from the county chief of staff. As of today, that has not been received. However, we did learn that there are 20 boxes of material from the reassessment. We have not been able to find out yet if there is an electronic file of the information that we are searching for. I still expect there will be such a file somewhere, but I am prepared to go through all 20 boxes to see exactly what the net result of spending $4.3 million in taxpayer money looks like, and what is the value of the paperwork and the information in those boxes. So we'll keep everybody informed on that. I expect we haven't received that letter yet, right? All right, so I expect that probably soon. It was supposed to It was being worked on last week by the chief of staff. We'll find out, hopefully in the meantime, they found the electronic version so we can get that information to LIPS and continue to do a better job on finding out what property should be on the rental registration ordinance. So that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mr. Gallion?
Yes, thank you. 524 North Rebecca Avenue, I mentioned last week. It's a house that the back porch collapsed. Neighbors are seriously concerned about it. The house has been condemned now for nearly 10 years, so we did reach out to the Licensing and Inspections Department. Mr. Hinton got back to us. This house was supposed to be demolished previously, but for whatever reason it was not. So we urged Mr. Hinton to put this on the demolition list and put it near the top of that list or at the top of that list, and he agreed to do that. So I want to thank him personally for that. And we did send correspondence out to the neighbor who lives next door, alerting him of that update. So I am hopeful that that home gets demolished as soon as possible. We did get a couple complaints about the 400 block of Mahone Court in the hill section, about trash being strewn everywhere, so we're going to send something up to the Licensing and Inspections Department to see if they can take care of that. Also, speeding on Schimpf Court behind Cedar Avenue in Manuka. There's young children in this area, so we're going to send that complaint up to the Licensing and Inspections Department. We did get an update from our solicitor on the, I guess you call it a snafu, with the 10% discount on the garbage fee. As you know, I've been talking about this now for a few weeks, and again, it seems like someone new pops up every other day that came down to the Treasury Department and expecting the 10% discount on their $300 garbage bill, and they did not get it for whatever reason. So I would like to request that the administration put in writing what their interpretation is of the ordinance, because I'm confused as to why they are turning people away for the 10% discount, and I would still request that these people who have reached out to me get their $30 refund as soon as possible, because I think it's totally unfair. I would like to thank the DPW for taking down the rest of a very dangerous tree on North Irving Avenue. The neighbors in that block, particularly the neighbor in the home right in front, was very happy that that was taken care of. Also, I know I keep bringing this up, and I know there's a lot of trees that have to be taken down across the city, but I'd like an update on the 1100 block of St. Anne Street. That tree is really dangerous. And it looks like it's going to fall right on the house, and it's going to fall down any minute, actually. I was up there today to take another look at it. So if we could send something to the city forester again in the DPW. I have not received a response from the mayor about the meeting on the Civil War Museum downstairs. I would like an update from him as soon as possible on that, because I am concerned about where that group is going to go or if they're going to stay. We did receive the street sweeping program, the updated list from May 1st to May 5th. The street sweeper will be in the West Scranton area from Trip Park section, Dickens Street to Gibson Street. May 8th and May 12th from Orem Street to Washburn Street, including all avenues and streets in between. I am very happy that my colleagues agreed to support my motion earlier this evening to invite the Auditor General of the state of Pennsylvania in to audit the sale of the Scranton Sewer Authority. I'd just like to reiterate my comments from earlier tonight. Transparency and openness, in my opinion, has been totally lacking from this deal. And I am deeply concerned about the way that this whole thing went down. My question is, and hopefully we will be able to get this answer, did this deal serve the best interests of the taxpayers and the ratepayers, or did it serve the best interests of a select few? And I think it's unclear, because it is like, and it has been like for the past few months, pulling teeth to get information that should be readily available. When you have 50 attorneys on a deal, when you have attorneys making over $800 an hour, that's almost $6,000 a day. When you have attorneys making $100 and some thousand dollars in a month, which is more than some people make in their entire life, I don't think it's too much to ask to see what they did for that amount of money. And when I received the invoices and saw that everything was redacted because of attorney-client privilege, it's absurd. The whole thing is absurd, in my opinion. So again, I am Hopeful that the Auditor General will accept our invitation to come in here and take a look at this deal to make sure that it was in the best interest of the taxpayers and the ratepayers of this city. And that's all I have for this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gahan. Just an update on some issues that we discussed last week. This evening, right before the meeting, I received a call from Larry West, who is Chief of Staff of Senator Blake's office. He had a conversation with DEP today regarding the Mr. Young's property out in Greenridge. We contacted DEP to find out if the city would be held responsible if we did any work out on that site. A verbal response, it's not in writings, but it's kind of an indication of what DEP feels, is that if we do work in that area and it does not significantly impact a cost-benefit ratio that was done prior on that project, if it doesn't change that, the benefit of doing the full project, then probably we will be allowed to get on that property and do some work. I did contact Mr. Young this evening. If we're going to have to get together with all parties concerned, that we can get on Mr. Young's property. And I do believe that this opens the door for us now to at least begin the planning stages for the scope of work and a cost of what it will take to repair those properties out there. I think this is an encouraging sign. It is definitely not a solution to the problem. It's definitely not the answer that we've been waiting for, but it is some progress, I believe, that has been made to get the city on Mr. Young's property and to at least begin the evaluation of the project. Mr. West also told me that the major project is still on the active list out in the state. It is being considered to be pushed up in funding, but these projects are long-term projects. So for the full project, really right now, if we were able to get it back started up, the earliest that they would be able to begin design of that would be June of 2018, which is not acceptable for Mr. Young's problem, but in terms of the solution for the entire section of Meadowbrook, perhaps we can get something to it. Mr. Evans mentioned it, and I mention it all the time. Unfortunately, there is a speed of government, and it's not fast. Another issue that was brought up last week in terms of the Kaiser Valley, there's a project out there with an electronic transfer line. We did contact the city planner, and I don't like to read from the script, but this is what he told us. The power line, it's a power line project, and it's involving the cutting of trees behind Oakwood Estates. The removing of the trees is for a new power line, an expanded power line. The power line will travel to Theodore Street Power Station behind North Scranton Goodwill Apartments. This is the part that I would like people to pay attention to. No permits are required because they are a public utility. They did provide the city plans, the plan to the city for courtesy for review. And as was provided to me, some information from PP&L, and I won't read the whole thing, but in regards to this, based on some case law, it's clear that public utilities are exempt from local zoning, subdivision, and land development ordinance. Further, under Pennsylvania law, stormwater management ordinance are akin to zoning and land developments. The local municipal zoning board has exclusive jurisdictions over these appeal for the determination of the zoning officer and multiple engineers in the administration of any land use or provision thereof. It is disconcerting to me that a public utility is not subject to the same requirements that private citizens are. We are working with Mr. King on keeping our eye on this project. I believe that the water company, I'm sorry, I keep talking about the water company, the electric company is responsible enough to do this project in a way that will not affect the citizens downstream, because if it's done in a poor manner, it may affect their power line. So I do believe that they're going to do it with the proper infrastructure, but it is something that we're going to have to keep our eye on. I did have a conversation this week also with the mayor and also with Linda Abley concerning the street signs. The street signs, there was a street sign study done a few years ago, and the price tag on that was over $700,000 to do the street signs. And I believe that study was done before there was a new development back in Manuka, and I'm not sure if Trips Park was built yet or not. So the cost right now would be significantly, probably approaching somewhere between $800,000. As Mr. Rogan stated, I think this is something that we're going to have to work on in stages. where we take a certain area of the city that we can use federal funds for and also combine it with city funds and gradually get to this process of doing a section of the city at a time. From speaking with the mayor this morning, he is committed to starting this project, but $700,000 for a city like us in distress status is a lot of money. When we talk about paving and we talk about stormwater management, street signs are a priority, but we have to work it in conjunction with those other priorities. Another issue that's been hanging around that we've, there's some complaints on is the elevator in the Linden Street parking garage. As of right now, the elevator is still not working in the Linden Street building. Currently, the plans for that improvements have been approved. They're in the process of awarding a contract to, I believe, a company called Schindler. And they are going to give out also a request for proposal for the demolition of the current elevator. Best estimates right now, talking to NDC, any completion of the project is no better than 6 weeks away. So it is, the news to me was not encouraging because that is a problem for people that use that garage, but it is something that is on their radar. I constantly call them to make sure that the project isn't forgotten, and they are moving along with it. The last thing that I have to talk about is something that I'm kind of becoming an expert on, is gypsy moths. Gypsy moths have been controlled pretty much throughout the city, but there are still pockets of problematic gypsy moths in the city, especially up on the East Mountain area because of the extra wooded areas that we have. The other night, the storm shook out a lot of the gypsy moths out of the trees, which is actually a good thing. The gypsy moths are killed by moisture and by rain, so that actually is a good thing that they got killed that way. The county is planning on doing gypsy moth spraying sometime within the next 2 weeks, depending upon the weather. It can't be too windy, it can't be too rainy, but the county is doing a good job monitoring this issue. I'd like to thank, I did speak to Mr. Wallace before he went away. That's, Mr. Evans, that's why he couldn't get back to you. He's been away the last few days, but he did get back to me about the gypsy moths, and also Mr. Bill Davis, who's Director of Parks for the county, for their quick response to this request. That's it.
5B for introduction of resolution approving in accordance with Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended, a plan of financing of the Scranton-Lackawanna Health and Welfare Authority and declaring that it is desirable for the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the city of Scranton for the Scranton-Lackawanna Health and Welfare Authority to undertake a project for allied health care services.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved.
5C for introduction of resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, Division of Weights and Measures to delegate specific weights and measures inspection and enforcement responsibilities to the city of Scranton.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved.
Sixth order, 6A, reading by title, file of the council number 99, 2017, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to disperse $89,000 from the account into which repayment of urban development action grants are deposited to be used for the purchase of paving materials for the city of Scranton's paving program.
You've heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved.
Seventh order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Finance for Adoption, file of the council number 96, 2017, amending file of the council number 65, 2016, an ordinance entitled General City Operating Budget 2017 by transferring $296,895 from account number as noted non-departmental expenditures contingency to account number as noted Department of Public Works, Bureau of Highways, Rental Vehicles and Equipment to provide sufficient funding for the rental vehicles and equipment account through the 2017 budget period.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7A.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B for consideration by the Committee on Public Works for adoption, file of the Council number 97, 2017, closing and vacating a portion of an unnamed alleyway between South Main Avenue and Halsey Court in the 1200 block of South Main Avenue.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Works?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Works, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question? On the question, I just have a note that I'd like to read. When the city vacates a road or alleyway, it's only giving the public's right to use it. It's not a transfer of deed. It will be vacated for purposes as stated at the public hearing held on April 27th. The vacating of this land does not remove any of our city requirements in terms of zoning, planning. It just allows us to be used for development. Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
No.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
7C for consideration by the Committee on Rules for adoption, file of the Council number 98, 2017, amending file of the Council number 63, 2016, an ordinance as amended entitled amending file of the Council number 155, 1999, an ordinance entitled providing for the licensing and regulating of contractors doing business in the city of Scranton, including requirements for the granting of permits and fees for same, providing penalties and rights of appeal by adding and deleting definitions, updating the department name and director's title, updating application forms, the requirements for contractors' license fees, issuance of permits, conformance to code, revocation, suspension, denial, prohibited acts, stop work, certificate of occupancy and temporary certificate of occupancy, permit fees, inspections, fines for violations, and appeals procedure, and deletion of sections 17 and 22 in their entirety by adding under section 1, definitions and interpretations, the definition for specialty contractor's license, adding the letter L under number 3 in section 2, contractor's license, adding specialty contractor, under section 3, application for license, adding M, requirements for a specialty contractor, and under section 6, license fees, adding the fees for masonry contractor license, residential contractor license, and specialty contractor license.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7C.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question. I'll be voting no on this legislation tonight. I feel it's unnecessary. We're adding another definition, and we're charging another fee on the working people of this city. And I'm also concerned that language in the legislation which says at the discretion of the Director of Licensing and Inspections is going to give too much discretion and too much power to the director and too much control. So I'm concerned about that, and I'll be voting no.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
No.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7C legally and lawfully adopted.
7D for consideration by the Committee on Public Works for adoption, resolution number 146, 2017, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract with Urban Electrical Contractors Incorporated to perform maintenance of streetlights for a 12-month period from May 1, 2017 through April 30, 2018.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Works?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Works, I recommend final passage of item 7D.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7D legally and lawfully adopted.
7E for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for adoption, resolution number 147, 2017, accepting the recommendation of the Historical Architecture Review Board and approving the certificate of appropriateness for Mark J. Sobek Roof Consulting Incorporated, 15 South Franklin Street, Suite 210, Wilkes-Barre, PA, for exterior masonry cleaning and restoration and the painting of exterior wood and metal architectural elements, at the Diocese of Scranton's St. Peter's Cathedral, Rectory, and Chancery at 315 Wyoming Avenue, Scranton, PA 18503.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As Chair for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7E.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7E legally and lawfully adopted. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting is adjourned.
Joe, I just got a text from the anti-kissing law. Committee.
Well,